The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 156th program, it appears. And is it reading? Yes, reading 96. And we're on page 159 of Glamour, a World of Problem. I think it always helps to have a little, well, it helps to get into the books and then meditate accordingly. Like to welcome those of you who are here. You know, in the morning schedule here in Finland is hard for the people in the U.S. and except on the West Coast, and hard for people in South America. The people in Australia and New Zealand, maybe not so bad. But anyway, welcome. And well, it's early in England, so hi, Alexandra. And Anna, hi, and Annette, Catherine, and Frederick. Helen, hi, and Jessica, Joan, Karen, Catherine, Kim, Mariut, Martha, Miro, and Nathalie, yes, and Rebecca. Zenaidi and Ann Veronica, welcome. And over here on the staff side, Joe, Michael, and Tuya. So I think we're ready to begin. And Michael, Stacy is putting into you for you in the chat box some of what you will need for upcoming programs. Full moon is coming up quite soon, and just a number of things. So stay tuned with us, and we'll keep that flow going as much as may be possible. Now, our little segue before the starting today's reading is a question, and I guess it has to do with the world disciple humanity. Will expediency, which is a key descriptor for Ray 3 and represents the personality aspect and the Ray 3 personality of humanity, or rather of the planet itself, will expediency win, or will the dweller be sacrificed with love and understanding? Those are secondary words. To the angel. Will the dweller be sacrificed to the angel? This is the major problem. It's a broad problem, and it covers the whole human race. Of course, it's applicable to every one of us. Do we get on with what is convenient for the personality and just continue our rather rotary motion? Or will we, in fact, obey the very first law of the soul, which is the law of sacrifice? It doesn't mean that we eliminate the powers of the personality, because the more powers the personality has, the more sensitive it is, the more skillful it is, the better it is for the soul if the sacrifice takes place. So just, in our own case, just taking a moment off, what would it mean for any of us to sacrifice the personality to the soul? What would it mean in your own case, let us say? And so often it does mean some kind of inconvenience. The Tibetan uses the idea of cutting athwart. This is how he puts it, cutting athwart personality tendencies, which may not be progressive at all, you know. They just sort of re-emphasize the lunar life with all of its non-progressive prerogatives. And it's easy to settle into those and say, well, that's just the way I am, you know. I mean, how many of us have said that to people when they ask us for a change of behavior? Well, that's just the way I am, you know. So that is quite rotary, even if they have a point and the spiral is not involved. There's no forward straining towards a better objective, which produces then, as a combination of first ray and third ray motion, the spiral cyclic motion of, well, it's progression, but it's not the drastic progression of the first ray, because when you combine rotary and progress onward, you get spiral cyclic, which is a somewhat more gentle approach. Now, sometimes, you know, you're going to look at your horoscope, if you've been doing that, and maybe years later, you're going to see some similar come up, and planets will return to their original position. I mean, you might have a lunar return, or you might have another opportunity to deal with the sun going into a new sign through progression, through an ingress. You might have your Saturn return, you know, first or second Saturn return, or, well, very, very few would live beyond a Uranian return of 84 years. But Saturn is significant, and the Jupiter return will be significant. So you can measure where you are and how you respond according to where you were in a similar situation and how you responded. And that will show whether spiral cyclic motion has been operative in your life. And if you find no difference in the response, then there just has not been the kind of progress that otherwise there could have been or should have been. So hopefully we don't just hang out with our moon. That is something that I was doing a bit with the triangles group in the science of triangles, offering the opportunity toward the end of the program for people to offer, if nothing else, their sun, moon, and rising sign, and just consider it a generic triangle, moving from the moon to the sun to the rising sign. As far as including the monad in that at some point, well, you know, if it's relevant, okay, it can be included. Otherwise, it's just theoretical. But remember that all those signs will keep changing as different horoscopes are produced for different births, different incarnations. So always we have different energies to be adding in the long cyclic progress of building the internal angel, or building the vehicle for the angel of the presence. So I didn't spell this correctly. I just want to say expediency. Will we have expediency or sacrifice? So that's kind of the segue. And DK goes on. And I would say, you know, we're about 3/5 through this book, or maybe a little more. I would ask you, my brother, to do two things. Study the above ideas in the light of the present world crisis, which is still ongoing for us, and in the light of your own soul personality problem, because the two things are really, they're parallel, no question. Advanced humanity stands as the dweller on the threshold, on the very threshold of divinity. Now, sometimes we don't use that full phrase. We just say, oh, the dweller on the threshold, something blocking your way. But blocking your way to what? It's your own self blocking your way to a greater appropriation of divine energy, spirituality and divinity. The road is blocked by our own behavior, reactions, and thoughts. The angel, which is a kind of imported consciousness that mixes with our own extended monadic consciousness, because that's what it is. All consciousness, awareness is of the monad. The angel stands expectant. By the way, look at every word. It's not that the angel sits expectant, it stands expectant, absorbed in the presence, yet ready to absorb the dweller. And by the way, what this can mean is that when we succeed in really contacting that angel of the presence, we get some inkling as to what the presence itself is. Because the angel is absorbed in the presence, it's absorbed in the awareness of the monad, awareness of oneness. It's absorbed in some kind of identification which we haven't achieved yet. And when we slip into that causal meditation, which is our goal, one of our first goals, then we're going to get a hint as to what that awareness is. And maybe that's why the heart has to be open in order to progress with the art of identification. It certainly was in the case of the Christ, as I was saying yesterday in the identification as being work. The Christ was the great master among human beings of the art of identification. He used the second ray method. Last night we were using a third ray method to promote identification. So the angel stands expectant, absorbed in the presence, yet ready to absorb the dweller. Now, what will that mean? It can mean a number of things. Whoa, that's not it. That's not it. This is not what I wanted. Yeah, I just have to get a different kind of bracket here, okay? It will mean that the personality ray becomes the subray of the soul ray. That's another way of saying that the angel of the presence, which is in my view, the expression of the solar angel on its own higher level, absorbs the personality. Now we can ask ourselves, almost every moment here is a chance to ask ourselves certain questions. Do we, when we're being the soul in incarnation, the identity in the midst of personality happenings, do we feel absorbed by the angel of the presence? Have we achieved an intimacy with the angel of the presence? Can we kind of at will merge with the angel of the presence, even as it is attempting to merge with our personality nature, can we identify as that kind of consciousness found on the higher mental plane, which is the angel of the presence consciousness and our own monadic extended consciousness, extended but somewhat curtailed because of the lower atmosphere in which it is found. So, basically it comes to a question of what is my relationship with the angel of the presence, because we all have one. There may be some human beings who are not yet invested with the angel of the presence, and they will in a coming root race perhaps, or a coming round, receive that kind of implantation. But if you're studying these things and you're serious about it, and you're interested in learning what it's like to be part of the fifth kingdom of nature, you are attended by an angel of the presence. Humanity has advanced in consciousness to the very boundaries of the world of spiritual values and the kingdom of light and of God. So, human progress is extensive these days, and never was the opportunity greater than now for changing kingdoms. And it was a big crisis where long ago, huge animal man became human and eventually became self-aware. And now again, group consciousness looms ahead in the fifth kingdom, and millions of human beings can enter the fifth kingdom, enough to leaven the whole mass. The angel has, quote, come to earth in expectation of recognition. So he's, speaking in some ways literally and in some ways symbolically, an event of which the advent of Christ, event Advent, 2,000 years ago, was the symbol and the precursor. Christ is like, in a way, the angel of the presence. He came to start a movement which would be essentially a 5,000-year movement, or almost that long. And it presaged the time, anticipated the time when the angel in every one of us would come to earth, which means, what does it mean? The angel would infuse the personality. Now, sometimes we're swept by the feeling of infusion, but eventually DK says it's going to be like a steady drip, a steady stream, and that always what is in the angel will be pouring through what we normally consider ourselves to be, until we get into that Gemini state where we identify with the higher of the pairs of opposites. And we know that, in a sense, we are the angel. We are that combination of awareness, which is monad in extension and angel in projection. And we are that. An event of which the advent of Christ 2,000 years ago was the symbol and the precursor. This is the situation where all advanced aspirants are concerned. Now, a true aspirant, what is a true aspirant? A true aspirant has taken the first initiation. So if you are an advanced aspirant, it probably says something about a relatively high stage of discipleship. All true aspirants have taken the first initiation. an advanced aspirant. Well, these are relative terms, you know. Um, even the Christ is an aspirant to certain states on Sirius and beyond. So you can call a person an aspirant, a disciple, and an initiate all at the same time. This is the situation where all advanced aspirants are concerned. It can be yours. DK is basically telling his students there that maybe not all of them are advanced aspirants, but they can move into that condition. It is the situation where humanity as a whole is concerned and the approaching hierarchy. This is what's going on now behind the scenes, behind all the noise, behind all the glamour and unrecognized illusion that is thrown about untruthfully, you know. The consciousness of humanity from the higher and spiritual standpoint functions today through the steady growing band of world servers, world aspirants, and world disciples, and their name is Legion. Well, he seems to be progressive here. For him, the world server is the first category. And even so, to be a true member of the new group of world servers, there are many hints that tell us that one is essentially an initiate of the second degree and has to keep a good watchfulness for those who have taken the first degree or even the second, and then help them become incorporated in the true new group of world servers. But I think he's using the term here, using the term somewhat generically, somewhat in general. World aspirants, are disciples of a certain rank, and world disciples, well, finally, the world disciple is an initiate of the third degree. But sometimes initiates of the second degree are called world disciples. These days you can contact anyone in the world, but it doesn't make you a world disciple. It just means that technology is at your disposal, which allows you to spread your influence much further. But there's something about the nature of the influence which determines whether or not you are truly a world disciple. I'm remembering some of you are, astrologically inclined, and you know of the astrologer Dane Rudyard. He was a very profound astrologer, and he was a friend of Alice Bailey, and people said, well, why isn't he in your groups? And DK said of him, well, he's already a world disciple. So he was high in the ranking and apparently could do more good in that way and on his own than being incorporated in these experimental groups that the Tibetan was undertaking. Humanity today is the dweller, whilst the hierarchy of souls is the angel. And behind stands the presence of divinity itself, intuited by the hierarchy and, probably through the angel, dimly sensed by humanity, but providing in this manner that threefold synthesis which is divine manifestation in form. I think this is somehow an important paragraph. Humanity today is the dweller. So it's a big battle, of which the Great War was an example, an engagement which was taking place on a higher turn of the spiral under Scorpio, then the Battle of Kurukshetra, some 4 million years ago. We'll have to ask Philip, when exactly when he's kind of figured these things out. But that was under Libra long ago. Now under Scorpio, same leaders, same issues, but clarity as to what is good and what is evil, which did not exist in those days. Humanity today is the dweller, advanced to a considerable extent, as the dweller can be advanced, whilst the hierarchy of souls is the angel. And behind that all stands the monad, the one, the presence, the identicality, the thing we all are. The presence of divinity itself stands behind that, intuited by the hierarchy, because that is a quality that the hierarchy possesses, and those who are going to enter the new esoteric schools, they have to show an aptitude for intuition, so they can intuit this from the triadal points of tension and dimly sensed by humanity, which is not there yet, but providing in this manner the threefold synthesis, what will we call it, spirit, soul, body, spirit, soul, personality, which is divine manifestation in form. So there's a triplicity going on here, and whatever's we have a triplicity we're trying to bring together solidly in our own individual life, and we're still, failing to really do that. I mean, which one of us can say, well, we're really a totally soul infused, ready to take the fourth degree, some kind of initiate. We can't say that. We don't have that kind of total soul infusion, which precedes immediately the fourth initiation. And humanity is even further away from that, as humanity is not yet the world initiate, but it's becoming so. It's becoming, in a way, the world initiate of the first degree, and the reappearance of the Christ will signal that humanity, or at least those within humanity who can, have taken the first initiation. So it's a marker. It's very interesting, and maybe that's another way that the Christ cannot appear until something happens. There's the whole question of sharing and peace and house cleaning, but maybe until enough human beings take the first initiation, the Christ cannot appear, setting the seal upon that fact, indicating that that has taken place. But we are on the threshold of that initiation, and even as it is, esoteric psychology, page 70 and 71, esoteric astrology, page 70 and 71, the tough planets, first-ray planets, Pluto and Vulcan, will be involved and cause great disturbances. So humanity is passing through those disturbances initiated by first-ray planets, and then we'll pass through them and be able to have, on a much broader scale, the birth of the Christ in the heart. All these three, the divine, the monad, the soul, the personality, or the presence. Let's call it, what are the three? The presence, the soul, and the personality. All these three have powerful emanations. Though the emanation of the presence via Shambhala has been wisely held in leash since the human race came into being, well, we're not so ready say we are cultivating on this planet the second aspect of divinity, and not yet so much the first, which will be the case toward the end of the solar system. And in our next global incarnation, our next Earth scheme incarnation in the next solar system. So these 3 points of tension, we might say, they all have auras, ranges of influence. If you had a nice time talking. I think you can hear me now. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't know what caused that freeze, but not the most pleasant thing when it happens. And let's see, Glamour Project. And let's just see how I do here. It'll just be a minute. It may be that many things that I wrote down disappeared. I don't know.
And there are 2 of you, and the one that is not speaking is the presenter.
Uh-oh. Okay. Okay, let's see what.
I'll make the other Michael Robbins the presenter.
Okay, wait a second. It says welcome back. So I am being welcomed back. And now I just have to see how far, otherwise I'm just going to have to talk and, not have anything to refer to. So
We were in the middle of the paragraph that talks about on this planet we are cultivating, or you wrote on this planet we are cultivating the second aspect of divinity.
Yeah, I just am having trouble getting my getting the document. Okay, that's difficult glamour world problem, and I'm hoping that this is it. Create a local copy. Okay, I don't know why I can't. Okay, yeah. Oh, I seem to maybe have it, and now, but I have to go way down here to find it, and I'm not sure you see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
You're scrolling through the document now.
Yeah, very good. Let's see, what page are we on? Does it say? Okay, this is program 156. Is that it?
Yeah, we're on page 159 and approaching probably 160.
Okay, it looks like maybe there'll be some. I think I'm getting close now. Okay, there we are. The presence, the soul, and the personality, and all of these have powerful emanations. I don't know. Did you discuss anything while I was gone, or just about? Maybe not, huh?
We all went into deep meditation.
Ah, right. That's a good one. Okay. And now, wait a second. Why am I? Okay. Here it is. Yes, here it is. Okay. Sorry for the delay, a few minutes wasted. I don't like that, but that's what happens. And, okay. Have returned, more or less. Okay. And now, okay. So here we are. They all have powerful emanations, it says. And yes, right now, in our life, the dweller is still the most powerful. They all have auras, if you care so to call them. I guess maybe DK has some better idea. And in the three worlds at present, the point of tension we call the dweller is still the most powerful. Now, I was just going to ask all of you, and that's when it froze. I was going to ask you to kind of look at your life, and when compared to the 3 points, the presence, the soul, and the personality, I was going to ask you to assess how powerful still is the dweller in your own case. Let's take a minute off and do that. And I think if we are honest, we will find that there are still many dweller-related streams of behavior, thought, and reaction in our nature. I mean, if we could only monitor the situation and say, now I've slipped into the personality. Now I'm being the dweller. Now I'm not. Now I have maintained my altitude, my distance from identification with the dweller. Maybe in emergencies, this little thing for me is like a mini emergency because I hate to waste your time. What do we revert to? A panic? Do we stay cool? Do the emotions get out of control? It's in those moments of emergency or stress, when environment is stressful or inner factors become stressful, that we can tell whether we revert to the habitual nature of the dweller or whether we maintain our spiritual altitude. So I was kind of half and half. It is this powerful human emanation which constitutes the major glamour in the life of humanity and of the individual disciple. He calls it a glamour. The personality is like a glamour itself. The let me put it this way. Identification. Oh, you can't believe that. Identification as the personality is itself a glamour. Now, we really need to monitor ourselves because the personality can manifest in all kinds of ways according to its experience, its sign, its ray. And it's a very simple question. When are we being the personality And when are we being something else, which is higher, a higher point of tension, a higher perspective, a higher consciousness? And are we accurate in assessing when we are one or the other? Those simple questions we can submit to our judgment. So it is this powerful human emanation, and that, because in a way, you know, the soul itself is not human in the personal sense. But for so many millions of years, we've been a member of the fourth kingdom of nature. We have been very, very human. And it depends on how far you want to extend that word. But what Master DK says eventually, when contrasting the Chohans of the sixth degree from the masters of the fifth degree, he says they are no longer men as are the masters. So the apex of humanhood is mastership. And then beyond that, you may belong to the human creative hierarchy, but you certainly are not part of the human kingdom. It's something beyond. It is a synthesis of glamour, fused and blended by the personality ray, but precipitated by the effect of the steadily influencing soul ray. So maybe this is what he means by that human emanation. Because after all, the soul is becoming more and more dominant, but at first it can, strangely, it can force the personality into a greater type of self-assertion. If the personality grabs that soul energy and uses it for its own reinforcement. So all these three have, you know, reviewing here, they all have auras, and the dweller aura, the personality aura, is still the strongest, and maybe for us too. And it is this powerful human emanation which constitutes the major glamour, the major veil to realization in the life of humanity and of individual disciples. Personality is blocking us, and this is another way in astrology we can look at that mysterious thing called veiling. The personality vehicles veil something deeper and prevent us to access that deeper thing. The veil stops it. And those vehicles are ruled in a way by the moon. In other words, the lower mind, the astral body, and the etheric physical, they're all ruled by the moon, and the moon is like a veil which blocks access to spiritual energy. When it comes, but sometimes the sun veils something. And when it comes to the whole personality demonstration, the sun is the veil. Now, really, it's probably not the sun. It's, you know, it's probably this other undiscovered second ray planet, but something the whole personality does prevents access of spiritual divine energy through the process of veiling. In other words, our concentration is so much upon what the whole personality is that that particular orientation of consciousness prevents a higher consciousness. And this is one of the definitions of what it means the moon veils Vulcan, the moon veils Neptune, the moon veils Uranus, or the sun is involved in the veiling of the spiritual life due to the entire personality which the sun represents in the horoscope. So both sun and moon, astrologically considered, are veils against the wider, deeper life. And the veils have to be lifted, or as in the case of the Christ, the veil of the temple on a higher turn of the spiral was ripped in two, and then the monad can come in and liberation from the causal body occurs. You know, read chapter 10 in the Rays and the Initiations, and you'll see various kinds of rending of the veil by Moses, by St. Paul, and by the Christ as the greatest. So this human emanation, it is a synthesis of glamour, which is a blockage against spiritual absorption, a synthesis of glamour fused and blended by the personality ray, making it strong. You know, the personality ray drives the fiery energies below the diaphragm. That's one of the quotes from somewhere. And you understand that it has a very definite effect, not allowing those energies to rise up and animate the higher chakras. It drives the fiery energies below the diaphragm, but precipitated by the effect of the steadily influencing soul ray. And let's just say, from this point of view, we must reach the point where the personality in its own right is no longer strengthened in rebellion against the soul by the soul. In other words, soul energy can strengthen personality rebellion. And, you know, that is why that even though you have a soul ray of a certain kind, it can be used in a personal way. I think we're all familiar with that because he gives a lot of faults that are connected with our soul ray. That means that the soul ray is being personally appropriated and is not standing and demanding that the personality accommodate itself to the consistency of the soul ray. Okay, well, I think, you know, we kind of get the idea there. It is the shadow or distortion of reality. That is, you know, let's just say this human emanation, which is personal, is the shadow or distortion of reality, now sensed for the first time on a large scale by the race of men and thrown into high relief. In other words, we really see something, finally. You know, we might say, at last we see the obstacle, which the self we think we are is. That's a very awkward sentence, but we think we are the personality. And finally, because we gain a little soul perspective, we see that it really is an obstacle. If we just hang on to that rotary motion of the personality getting its own way and emphasizing itself as the major point of tension. So it is the shadow or distortion of reality, and we might call it, therefore, the shadow or distortion of the soul. Now sensed, finally, for the first time on a large scale by the race of men and thrown into high relief, we really see it, by the light which shines from the angel, the transmitter of energy from the presence. There's another synthetic statement, and a good one. So from the presence comes the energy transmitted through the angel and revealing, the personality for what it is. Revealing the personality for what it is. And it is not pleasant. I wonder how many of us have gone through that, where the light shines. You know, we get all this spiritual aspiration. We really want to move ahead spiritually, you know, be part of all that. The light shines, and oh my God, what do you see? You see stuff that you didn't see before. It's thrown into high relief, and you say, this wretched thing, this is not I, O Master of my life. It's in one of the catechisms here. You know, he says, intensify the light, intensify the light. What do you see? And then the disciple is horrified by what he sees because of the light from the angel. Now, that's an experience everybody has to go through. And basically what's needed is to keep on intensifying the light. And then there will be a gradual dissipation of that negativity, worked away, worked thin, worked out through service, helpfulness. That's what will eventually happen. So you can ask yourself, you know, have I been through this experience? I know I was through this experience. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It's like the you know, the dregs of the aura from the ancient past come up, and you just, is that stuff in me? And at the same time, Pluto was very, very active in my life, and I was doing Jungian analysis. And you know, they say if you want to be a Jungian psychologist, you got to go through the analysis yourself. So I was into that deeply during that Pluto transit. I saw a lot of the bottom of things. And you know that it's all got to be cleansed. But fortunately, Pluto is the healer with the power of the serpent, and it will clean things out. And so they stand, humanity and hierarchy. And so you stand, my brother, personality and soul, with freedom to go forward into the light if you so determine, or to remain static and unprogressive, learning nothing and getting nowhere. Oh, he's quite straight here, isn't he? You are equally free to return to identification with the dweller, negating thus the influence of the angel, refusing imminent opportunity, and postponing until a much later cycle your determining choice. This is true of you and of humanity as a whole. Well, the consequences are clear. And we have to take seriously that when we refuse an opportunity, we may not be able to snap our fingers and say, now I want another opportunity. It may be a while before things come around to the point where you really do have another opportunity. Now, he tells us that if an individual identifies as his dweller and slips basically into being his dweller, we produce the destroyer of souls on the first ray, the deluder of souls on the second ray, and the manipulator of souls on the third ray. He didn't go farther, but maybe we can include the rays of attribute under the rays of aspect. And so now here's the great alternative. Will humanity's third ray, materialistic personality, dominate the present situation? Or would its soul of love, the coming second ray soul of humanity, prove the most powerful factor, taking hold volcanically, you might say, taking hold of the personality and its little issues, putting things in proportion, leading it to discriminate rightly and to recognize the true values, and thus bring in the age of the soul or hierarchical control. The Tibetan doesn't know what will happen. Time alone will show, and I have a feeling that it is the reappearance of the Christ, which in the mercy of the Christ is meant to help humanity make the right decision. Okay, and basically this is the end of this section. So it seems that we should just read this final paragraph. I will give you no more today. I am anxious for these few essential statements to be mastered by all of you prior to our taking up section 3. I am anxious. Notice the master is anxious. What does he mean by that? Not a loss of control of the emotional body, but some kind of sensitivity whereby his identification with us causes him to have great concern. Because there's no way to tell what humanity will really do. I'm anxious too for the general group instructions which you have lately received to take much of your time, interest, and attention. Apparently people were neglecting what he had given them, at least to the extent that he wanted them to attend. Inner group adjustments and more firmly established group relations are urgently needed, and upon these I ask you to work. And we could say the same of ourselves as we attempt to work in groups and care about the group and make the necessary adjustments in our own attitude and behavior with respect to the group. I would remind you here also that, as in all else in manifestation, there is a group personality and a group soul. Well, I think any of us who have worked in groups know that that is the case. Huh? You must learn clearly to distinguish between the two and to throw the entire weight. It's like Arjuna, right? To throw the entire weight of your influence, desire, and pressure on the side of the group angel. It's a bit like what Lincoln was talking about when he talked about listening to our better angels. In this way, there might occur that stupendous recognition for which all initiation prepares the applicant, the revelation of the presence. And, in our identify as being group, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We may use a lot of different words, but we are attempting to recognize not just the soul of love, but the presence of being, the presence of the inner God who basically is being. So the hope is that if we throw the weight of our everything on the side of the angel, a stupendous recognition may be ours, for which all initiation prepares us more and more, the revelation of the presence. And that's what I was asked the other night, is there, in pursuit of all this stuff around being, does it help the disciple? Well, it helps the disciple precisely for this reason. The Tibetan has put it in very simple language, but what it really means is up to each one of us to determine. So we've gone as far now as page 160, and we began on 159, so we're really making progress. And I'll just put this in here to orient us the next time. We'll be taking up a new subject. And so basically, this is finishing up 156, and it is the 28th of August, and reading 96, and we're on page 160. And we begin next time, which is the 4th of September. And it will be an evening program, and it'll be 157, and it will be reading 97, and we'll start on page 160.
Michael,
okay. Yeah.
the next section starts on page 161.
Okay.
So this section finished page 160.
Oh. Ooh, yeah. Hold on just one second. Yeah, you're right. Okay, very good. So that gives us maybe a little bit, a little more feeling of having covered some ground. All right. Now we'll find our way. Okay. Anyway, we'll meet again next Friday for this. And 161, yeah. Because here it says, pages 160 to yeah, so there's a bit of a mistake there, but it's okay. We'll find our way. All right, friends. So what have we been doing here? Pretty much talking about the dweller in us and the dweller in humanity, and how to identify with the angel in us, and how to have the human personality identify with the angel, which is supervising humanity's progress. It's a great duality. And basically, the personality is responsible for all this distortion and veiling. And I gave a little astrological idea of one of the things that veiling means. And basically, it can be a protection because, I remember him saying that usually the disciple at a certain stage cannot withstand the energies of the unveiled Neptune. It's just too much sensitivity. So the veil can sometimes hold off the full access of a hidden or a true energy beneath the moon until our vehicles can handle it, until the whole personality can handle it. So in a way, it's a veil. A veil is not just a mechanism for blocking the access to greater energy, but it actually preserves the integrity of our system against too much, too soon of the real energy, which is usually the energy of Vulcan physical, Neptune emotional, and Uranus mental. A triplicity is put together: the presence, the soul, the personality, and the personality is presently the strongest, and maybe even in our life still the strongest. We are beginning to intuit the presence, as hierarchy does to a much higher degree. Hierarchy lives in the triad and can intuit the presence. The angel has come to earth, and we must make it appear, and the Christ's presence 2,000 years ago was the anticipation of the angel coming to earth. So the whole thing, the dweller and the angel. Now, in the Geminian country of the United States, you really see this working out, but you see it working out in many places. I think you see it working out in Great Britain too, in the United Kingdom, even though I suspect that Northern Ireland will not forever remain part of the of Great Britain. I think Ireland has its own energies, and they will have to be put together. Northern and Southern Ireland, I believe, will have to come under Virgo and Pisces, and not so much under Gemini and Taurus. So that's pretty much what we've been looking at, and we use the analogy: study ourselves, study humanity, study humanity, study ourselves. Now, your thoughts and questions.
We begin, Michael, with comments from Kim. She writes, "Our teacher who is enlightened, and I am sure one of the masters of wisdom, has given us very precise guidance on how to spot the personality versus the soul, or in his parlance, the false self and the true self. We have very specific techniques for dismantling the false self personality so that the true self can manifest."
Yes, that's good. And let me just make this comment, that the Tibetan tells us that we must not ever make of the personality, his quote is, a poor dead thing. That the more vivid the personality is, as long as its higher aspects especially is under the control of the soul, the better an instrument the soul has with which to express. So we could dichotomize it, which I'm not saying that that's what's going on in what you're describing, but some people dichotomize like this: soul good, personality bad. Okay, I mean, I'm just utterly simplifying the whole thing. But what we're looking for is the soul-infused personality, in which the richness of the personality developed over millions of years is preserved, but as an acquiescent subray of the soul ray. And that is what has to be achieved by all of us, so that even if we're making a Maya Virupa and we no longer have a lunar personality, but we have basically a higher ideal of what the personality is materialized through Kriya Shakti, that personality is a useful instrument. Now, some people beat themselves up, you know what I mean? they somehow, you see, when we talk about the word dismantling, it means like taking it apart. So since I haven't studied, in relation to the teacher you're working with, so I don't know exactly what that means, but I imagine it doesn't mean that kind of drastic thing. But some people will attempt to beat themselves up. We had in the Middle Ages the flagellants who were going along on the fourth subray of the sixth ray, inducing pain in their personality and beating themselves into submission. And the Buddha learned that lesson too, or at least Prince Siddhartha did. The Buddha is a different being in a way and knows that from long ages. But the Buddha saw them, or rather Siddhartha saw or Gautama saw the musician, and he learned the lesson that if you stretch the string too tight, it snaps, and if you allow it to be too loose, you get no sound, or an ugly sound. So there is that noble middle path, which allows personality adjustment to the soul in the right way. It doesn't negate the personality, doesn't kill the personality, it doesn't let the personality just have its own way in all things, which would be license and not real freedom. It takes the noble middle path and it acquiesces, giving all of its gifts to the soul, which absorbs them and then expresses its own nature through infusion through the personality. In other words, none of us is a pure soul walking the earth. If that were the case, why would the Tibetan give the personality ray and the soul ray of the Christ? Ray 2 soul, ray 6 personality. He used it. The Buddha, ray 2 soul, ray 1 personality. He used the personality. Hercules, ray 1 soul, ray 2 personality. He used the second ray. So it's just a question of the wise use of form and not the negation of form. I'm sure we all agree on that point.
So, Michael, Kim followed it up writing, "It's so hard to put into words, but basically it is doing what the ageless teachings talk about, just in different words."
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of words to describe a similar goal. So that's why we have to get beyond words and see what the real result may be. We all have our methods of climbing the mountain, but the mountaintop, the peak is shared by all the climbers once they get there. So by their fruits you shall know them. That's the key. Thank you, Kim.
And Frederick writes, "Is the group soul evolving thanks to collective awareness and collective consciousness provided by the cycle of reincarnations?"
I would say yes. I would say that here's a group that's part of the seed group experiment of 275 years. They didn't succeed in their first venture into this project. DK had to cut it off and rearrange everything. The war came along and people had not responded in these groups of 9 the way he hoped they would, but you can be sure that they'll keep going until the year 2200, and then who knows what takes over, and there will be an evolution of their relationship with each other such that they will be much better representatives of the particular seed group for which they in which they held some responsibility. So everything is evolving in that way. The individual causal body, the group causal body, the causal body of the nation, the causal body of humanity. It's all evolving. And all those different types of evolution are heading, have their own system of initiation. The initiated individual, the initiated group that DK is always talking about in arrays and the initiations, the initiated nation, the initiated human race, all through the improvement of the causal body. So I would say, yes, it is evolving. But the only thing that doesn't evolve is being. Being does not evolve, but access to being evolves. So I guess we can get the difference, can't we? I think so. You know, the degree to which we can access the nature of being is always going to improve. But what we find as the substratum is what it is forever. Frederick.
Okay, there are no other hands raised, and the only other comments are gratitude and blessings for what's been discussed tonight.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Well, you know, we have a lot of different approaches here. You'll see how different is this approach, which is somehow very practical in terms of cultivating the microcosm and its function in improving the macrocosm. Very practical, very down to earth and so forth. And then, of course, what we had about 12 hours ago was much more metaphysical and philosophical, and developing the abstract mind. And then tonight, cosmic fire. And we'll simply continue reading in Cosmic Fire, and we'll discover that we learn a lot about the great science of relations in our planet and solar system and local cosmos.
And
so
Michael,
different ways of coming in. Yeah, different ways of coming in, you see.
after I said that, and Veronica raised her hand, and Frederick added, maybe the access of being is under the influence of soul duties.
Yes, the more we improve in the curriculum of the Angel of the Presence, which is immersed in the presence, the more we will be able to access the presence, which is being. So we bring in more light, we do our duty, we meditate, we do those three things: meditation, study, and service. And then our ability to access the nature of being rather than just talk about it, it's so simple, it's difficult, improves. So, we have to carry out our soul duties, as you say, and that's the service angle. We have to study at least an hour a day, I would say. That's what it came down to in the arcane school, finally. And, if more is possible, then more is possible. And then to really learn how to meditate, which is a penetration into higher and higher points of tension. And that will make the beingness of everything, which is its non-qualitative nature, appear before our eyes, and we will realize that that beingness is what we are. So we have to fulfill the soul curriculum on the way to fulfilling or learning what is the presence.
Okay. And Veronica, you are self-muted. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Yes. Good.
Good morning. I have a question, but I can't put it into words very well, so please forgive me. I was thinking from the last time we did our meditation about the glamour of personality and all the things we are talking today. And I was stuck on the words, we negate the glamour, we destroy the life that is behind the glamour. And I was thinking, now the personality is needed. And okay, the personality has to be infused with the soul for it to work. Otherwise, it blocks the light from the soul. But what do we really mean when we say the glamour of personality? We negate the life behind the glamour. I was thinking, is it that the lunar lives I was thinking through vibration. Do we change the vibration? Do they get out of our bodies and more solar beings come in? What does it really mean that we negate and we destroy the life behind the glamour of personality?
We redirect the vitality which sustains a narrow egotistical point of view. We redirect that energy, essentially destroying its function in relation to preserving our limited point of view, and that energy is sent into widening and deepening our self-conception, so that that fixation that is egotism is negated. The fixation upon that tiny thing we call the personality is negated. The energy itself, of course, is never destroyed, but the use of the energy, which sustains limitation, is redirected, or in a sense, is destroyed as a prop to sustain egotism. So I'm redirecting vitality when I do that. I mean, that's how I've imagined it, and I start widening and deepening my point of view until I realize myself not to be that limited something that's in the middle of my field of consciousness, that personality. It just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until I can enter the soul state. At the same time, I acknowledge that if the personality energies are wisely used to enhance the expression of the soul energies, it is of value. It's only in the sense of egotistical fixation that the energies have to be removed from their function of sustaining that limitation. So if I'm always looking at myself, they say, take your eyes off your personal self. If I've always got my eyes on my personal self, and DK says, never for a minute do you forget yourself, meaning that personality in the middle of everything, then that's the wrong use of the energy. And that use of the energy has to be, okay, we can call it destroyed or redirected or withdrawn, and it has to be sent somewhere else into a deeper mode of revelation. That's what it means to me. And so I will never say, make the personality a poor dead thing, beat it into submission till there's nothing left. That would be to take an aspect of divinity, which has been cultivated over millions of years, and deny its value. It has value when it is hierarchically arranged in relation to a higher point of tension. And that's our job. Not personality in its own right, but personality as a subsidiary means of expression of a still higher energy. How do you blend a ray? I mean, when you study astrology, sometimes we look at how to blend the rising sign and the sun sign. It's the same thing. If I blend my soul ray and personality ray, it's a lot like blending my rising sign and my sun sign. And then if I want to make a combination out of that, I take the combination of my soul ray and rising sign and I blend them with the combination of my personality ray and sun sign. And then things will be in proper order and everything that I've got will be used in the right way instead of saying, I don't like this, get rid of it, when it is a valuable instrument. That's how I see it in any case. That destruction means redirection.
Can I say, I don't know if it's a right thought, that it's the thought form that we make for our personality that we destroy. Is it right to say that?
False form, did you say false form?
Thought form. Thought form.
Okay, well, maybe we have an unrealistic thought form about what we are, and that can be destroyed, We have an exaggeration, we have a minimization. We wrongly estimate what our personality is, and that distortion can be destroyed, yes. And all the energy which sustains that distortion is withdrawn, so the distortion dies. A bit like holding the hydra, right? It can't breathe. The hydra can't breathe in the air of straight knowledge. You actually see something on the Buddhic plane, and the hydra, which is breathing in illusion and glamour to sustain it, is just going to wilt, So you can say what you just said. The false estimation of what the personality is can die, and the energy that sustains the false estimation can be withdrawn and put into better use. I mean, do we have a realistic view of who we are? Really?
No.
Know thyself and thou shalt know the world. I mean, do we really know who we are? Do we even know where our personality has been, how it's been built up? What are the experiences that have made this, what does he call it, this sad, dark figure or something? Somewhere he talks about that. An old figure. Do we know what built that? And what's really at the bottom of it? When you study depth psychology and you get into depth psychological analysis, you begin to realize where you came from in the personal sense. And a lot of us don't know that. And none of us knows that, I would say, completely. I think it'll be a big shock when we're in that movie house all by ourselves, as in the movie Illusion with Kirk Douglas, looking at the Akashic record. Where did it all come from? And one day, when we are graduates of the human kingdom, we will see our entire progress in the building of the personality and the building up of the relationship between our higher self, soul, and personality. And all of that will be revealed to us in full detail. Right now, do we have that? I would say no. So, yes, let's break our false assessments of what we are.
May I ask something else?
We have two other hands.
Oh, so
yeah.
okay.
Well, let Aunt Veronica go on for the moment, and then we'll get, as long as you're here, go ahead, and then we'll take the two other hands.
It's
ahead,
just a flash that came to me. You said in one webinar that the rays of attribute are a synthesis of the rays of 1, 2, and 3. So I was wondering, yes, the rays of aspect. I was wondering, could the soul personality be actually the synthesis of the rays of the lower bodies? I mean, okay, if you've got a ray 2 and a ray 3, and all this could give you a conclusion for the synthesis, the synthetic ray of the personality. As we,
there's this one hint that's given that to DH, whatever he is, he's I mentioned him before. He was preparing for the third initiation. Basically, he had a 6th subray for every personality vehicle, and the combination of those 3 6th subrays gave him the 6th ray personality that he had. It's a DHB or something like that. But I do think that in a way, the rays work from above to below, and when the note of the causal body is sounded, that is the determining factor which will give us the future ray energy which is needed. So it's a question of selectivity according to the vision that is accorded when the soul sounds its note, or the causal body is translated into a note before incarnation. And what is lacking, what is overdone, what is underdone, those things are made obvious, and then a choice is made for selecting the ray that is needed. So I would not necessarily look for a mathematical combination here that will determine what will be the, I think if you check out the various disciples, you'll see that that will not work. That their personality rays, the rays of their vehicles are thus and so, and they don't necessarily add up in any way to make the ray of the personality or the ray of the soul. But my present estimation in terms of combinations are the following. Ray 4 is a combination of ray 1 and 2. Ray 5 is a combination of 1 and 3. Ray 6 is a combination of 2 and 3. Ray 7 is an equality of all the 3 rays of aspect 1, 2, and 3, a balanced condition. This is how I see it at the moment. You might also ask, why is there not more ray 1 in ray 6? Well, they are fundamentally different. You know, ray 6 is outward directed, ray 1 is inward directed. Ray 1 sustains its own center. Ray 6 is always looking for fulfillment more on the periphery until it gets reoriented. So that's, you know, and I could get into the explanation. In the book Tapestry of the Gods, I do get into that. And you can find why I believe that to be the case. But it's definitely, it is so that out of the 3, the other 4 do arise. But I don't think there's any one mathematical combination or formula that is going to tell you why you have certain rays in a certain life. It's the choice of the solar angel and of your own developing higher consciousness as to why you will have certain rays in a certain life. And mathematically, they may have no way of being determined. Okay. Okay, and then the other 2 hands.
Yes, Alexandra, you are self-muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep. Can, Alex.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. This might be too big a question for this for this time now, but I'll try. It's a burning question I have. So, so we're watching this great drama, and it's a lot of it's being played out on the stage in America, and we understand the larger context of, you know, what humanity is going through, and the Dark Lodge and the White Lodge, and you know, why we're experiencing this. But what my question is about the people involved in supporting the, excuse me, supporting the darker forces. So when we look at like history in the 30s, you know, if in a book on a piece of paper, we say, oh, how did that happen? How did these ordinary people say and do these things? How did that happen? Now we see so many similar elements today. And take, for example, the political convention. So the first week we saw all these expressions of light and a vision for America. And then this week we see the opposite. And over and over again, I'm asked, people on the spiritual path, not necessarily esoteric, they say to me, who are these people? Who are these people? We're so tired of listening to people on the world stage, in the media, and leaders who are not expressing our basic human values. And certainly, you know, you mentioned the UK. Same thing here. People are getting tired of not having their humanity on display, and particularly in their leaders. So what is the answer to that? Not why are they there? We understand the larger why, but who are they? How did they, where have they come from? Where have they come from? How have they enabled them? How come they're all seem to be coming out of the walls at the moment? How have they enabled themselves to be?
Well, maybe you know, it's a big question, and you know, basically the Christ said, "I come to bring not peace but the sword of discrimination regarding the sinuous path of good and evil." Master Moria says, well, we could eliminate these negative obsessors, but we would hurt you in the process. So, you know, they're too close to you. We couldn't do it. These people are either inexperienced souls or those who have chosen distortion. Many of them are intelligent moon chain types in whom the love energy is not yet showing because of the decisions they have made, which are basically selfish, and everybody has that opportunity to choose selfishly or selflessly.
Right.
The great majority are Lemurian incarnators.
Okay.
Maybe some Atlanteans, I don't know, you know, the mass. They're not really thinking for themselves, and their experience with intelligence is limited, so they are the prey of demagogues. They don't have enough experience to begin separating the pairs of opposites. And then because they don't have the inner guidance, which is the true higher self within them, they look in an authoritarian manner towards external guidance and those who will satisfy somehow the only thing they think they are. They have not separated the pairs of opposites, so they don't think of themselves as the soul in any significant sense. And the authoritarian leader will give them what they think they are wants. And, you know, so and we must remember the ray energies and the sign energies. America is the heir to the Piscean civilization, and its disintegration will be occurring within America. And maybe a disintegration of the major glamours that have sustained America, which are usually sixth-ray glamours. Basically, there's a battle between second-ray types and sixth-ray types, and the sixth-ray types are less experienced. The manipulators of the sixth-ray types, however, are very intelligent and simply have chosen the path of selfishness, you know, out of some kind of obduracy, some kind of refusal to remove egotistical identification. And that's their choice. You know, they are the manipulators. They are the destroyers of souls, the deluder of souls, and the manipulator of souls, and they're converging on the left-hand path and only falling from their tower that they have built up based upon their accumulated abilities will wake them up. Now, of course, I'm making a joke here. You can understand. Someone's got to fall out of Trump Tower and hit the pavement. And basically, it's a fifth petal problem right now. The fifth petal of the egoic lotus starts from sheer egotism through great suffering, through a fall out of the tower, into humble aspiration, discipleship, and finally, unfoldment of the fifth petal, the first initiation. But the suffering has to come first. And the question is, will there be enough of the humans, kind of as your human values, real values, to withstand this false feeding by the Black Lodge of the selfish types. It's
and
the
is that a
same thing
matter
in
of evolution as
nothing.
well? Is that a matter of
I'm sorry?
evolution as well? Is that a
Well,
matter, how evolved?
for some, yeah, but a lot of the people, if presented with appealing alternatives, even though they don't have a lot of experience, they might just go with the truer ideals. But as long as you've got these manipulative, deluding, destroying types, demagogically, holding on to them and pushing them this way and that way, they are quite helpless, because what they want is being appealed to, even though it's a big lie. So we've got to, in a way, reorient and even destroy the orientation of the intelligent manipulators, and then the mass will be in a better condition. Right now, they're in the grips of these representatives of the lords of form. So, it's a question of time, and it's a question of courage of the Ray 2 types in America, let's say. The courage to not, weakness is one of the problems with the Ray 2, but to stand on principle and to make the necessary sacrifices, and then the shift into the soul ray of the nation can occur. And right now, that whole thing is in the balances, and it could get very bad. So it's like, what you've just proposed is like the subject for a whole book, and and can't be answered. But experience is one thing, and deliberate selfishness is another thing.
Yeah.
Those two factors have to be dealt with.
Selfishness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they like the
Well, there's a
Judases of the
lot
world?
to discuss.
Are they like the Judases
I'm sorry.
of the world? Are they like the Judases of the world, though? It's like do they have?
Well, the selfish ones are like that. They are like that. The others, what are they going to do? That's, guns and God and mother and pie and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's who they think they are. They haven't been educated. And the educators on the second ray have to find the skillful way of stepping in to relieve them of that glamour of the sixth ray, which blocks all other alternatives except the little pleasures of the egotistical thing they think they are.
Yeah.
And of course, they're led by narcissists and egotists who just find themselves amplified in the adoring reflection of the mass to whom they have given permission to be less.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you so much. I've written that all down.
Yeah. Okay, Alex.
And the other hand raised is Anna. Anna, you are self-muted. There you go. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Anna, go ahead. Whoa, it's late. We got to get going.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Anna.
Well, okay, hold the question till next time. Glamour won't go away overnight. But let's, it's already 10 minutes to 10, so at least here it is. So let's get into the meditation. And our glamour will be today, they all revolve around each other, and they're all basically the glamour of personality and the illusion of mistaken identity. All of these are derivative from that complex of wrong identification. So we'll call it the glamour of personal superiority, which is animating a lot of the very shallow people who have power at this time, because they are not constrained by higher considerations. So the glamour of personal superiority, first ray glamour, and aided and abetted by the sixth ray. And there's also the pride of mental mental superiority, and what's it usually called? Mental pride, yeah. And the fifth ray, they know more than everybody, and people are inaccurate. And the seventh ray, they raise their chin often. Physiognomically, the seventh ray types look down, So there are these prideful things that can go on for any of the ray types, but maybe they're all synthesized together in a kind of a first ray attitude. I'm better than you. See, not that I am you, I'm just better than you. And that is succumbing to the great heresy of separateness or separativeness, whichever way it is. So let's have a little quiet. And we get the sense of all of us working together, wherever we may be, in a united state of consciousness. And we feel the fusion in consciousness that is characterizing us together as we concentrate on one objective to help dissipate glamour, and in this case it'll be the unwarranted glamour of personal superiority. The Christ does not go around saying, I'm better than you, does he? Even though he's vastly more developed than any of us. And we will use the protective formula, the long cross, tracing light as we go, the protective formula. You can use the three fingers of the Trinity to do that. Thumb and first two Jupiter and Saturn fingers. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. And we trace the light, we scry, as it were, and light appears in front of the whole group. The cross of divinity, it's called. Then we focus the triple light, the dual light of matter and mind, on the mental plane. So we bring up the vital light of the etheric physical, breathe it up to join the light, the logical reasoning light of the mental plane. In a vital manner, I can think reasonably, logically. And I reach towards the light of the soul. We contact that higher light, sense its presence. And we bring that light down to penetrate the lower mind and join the other two lights. The light of the soul joining the light of mind, rational and logical, and joining the vitality which sustains that whole union of lights. Three lights are now one. And now we stay together. The light is one. And in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. In that light shall we see light. We use a lesser light to contact or reveal a greater light, and light proceeds to reveal light all the way up. It's the light of the intuition which we hope and trust will be revealed to us as we proceed. Now the group says together the formula, and as it does so, the group members visualize the great searchlight they have created, turning its light upon the astral plane. Try to get the feeling of the astral plane and the feeling of the light we have created penetrating into that realm. Radiance and power are we and power. Radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. We turn the veiled condition into the condition of revelation, the darkness into the light of day. So now we have our beam. It's in this area where the solar plexus dominates, but it is not of the solar plexus. It deals with those energies which so often veil the higher revelation. And now we strengthen our beam through the spiritual will. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. Our goal, the dissipation, the weakening of the glamour so prevalent to the small-minded, the glamour of personal superiority, which prevents appreciation of the manifold aspects of will presented or to be presented by every human being to the entirety of the plan, at least that aspect of the plan that humanity can present. Personal superiority is a non-appreciative position. So think for a moment about all that humanity has lost by succumbing to the glamour of personal superiority. And how this glamour eventually impoverishes the one who is its victim. We become poorer in what counts when we are the victim and the expressor of personal superiority. And we reject the very things that could help. we discount the value of those who could contribute to our own welfare and the larger welfare by falsely imagining or by dwelling within our supposed superiority. And now we use the 3 words of power. We'll review them and then go into the silence where you can attempt inwardly to visualize what they indicate. So it's as if, as a group, we say, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of personal superiority. The power of our united light negates the quality of this glamour of personal superiority from affecting members of the human race. Negates the quality of the glamour from having its effect. The power of our united light destroys the life, the vitality behind or sustaining this glamour of personal superiority. Now we'll go into our 5 minutes of purposeful silence, penetrating into this glamour, producing its weakening, producing its dissipation. So 5 minutes. It's a kind of blindness, you know, and all these glamours induce a kind of blindness to reality. There's a French statement that noblesse oblige, which means that if you have true nobility or status, let us say spiritually, it obligates you to help those that you recognize have not had the time or have not somehow managed to develop the same. So if you recognize that you have gifts above those of others, we don't spend time in self-exaltation. We use our superior accumulations in the causal body, let's say, to assist the accumulative power of others. That's what the masters do. They stand head and shoulders beyond us, but they're not found in a state of self-exaltation. They use what they have to facilitate the growth, the accumulative power of virtue in others. It's a different attitude. So somehow there's a great brotherhood, a monadic brotherhood, a great equality, which pervades not only all human beings, but all beings. And that's why it's so important to recognize this horizontal Libran axis. Libra is also a hierarchical axis. But to understand how best to operate within the hierarchical axis, we have to understand the horizontal axis of identicality, which is true brotherhood. So, expressing love to all beings in the appropriate manner is the will of the Logos for us at this time. And it's not easy, and it takes skill in action. But we have to remind ourselves that to wall ourselves off through any separative edification, we build a fortress around ourselves and we work against the plan. That cannot be. And the vital energies which sustain those egotistical fortresses have to be withdrawn. The fortress will crumble and will be left dismayed, but in a state of better human relations. And the false self will be, images of the false self will be destroyed. And I would say in these kinds of exercises, devise some mantrams which reflect reality and use them. When you use them to help banish the false assessments which we sustain with our emotional energy, usually due to fear. You know, why won't You think of the ageless wisdom because I'm afraid I won't go to heaven. Well, it's fear. It's holding the consciousness as a prisoner. Widening opens the door to change of perspective and change of concrete thoughts, and you won't go to heaven, you won't go to paradise, you won't find material satisfaction in that materialistic heaven or paradise. So it's a risk, it's courage that's required. We withdraw our beam. Having cleared a little bit of the astral condition, the three lights return to their appropriate spheres. We sound the Om 3 times, realizing that some good has been done in clarifying the personality situation. Okay, thank you. And all of us on the communications team wish you love and many blessings. We have more work tonight with a Zoom webinar on the early part of A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, dealing with intelligent will, intelligent love, intelligent activity, and moving on basically through the fires of Brahma, the primordial fires, and trying to understand them. And then, someday getting into the solar fire, about which the majority of the book is written. So, appreciating your presence here, and more to do this evening, and then on the weekend, we'll continue with the destiny of the nations, soul of nations, and attracting money for hierarchical purposes. That is, as it is the crux of the problem the Tibetan tells us. And this will be converted soon, and it will be put onto the Makara website, and then eventually onto the YouTube website. So we've been going for quite a while here, and most of you have managed to endure. But, of course, there was that little break, but trying to keep the computer functioning in the right way, well, okay. So we'll see you, at least some of you, this evening here in Europe, 5 p.m. GMT. And let us persist. Bye for now.